This should have been a sure success. The United States F-15 Strike Eagle was sent to destroy the hidden command centers under the mountains in the Zagros area in southwest Iran. But suddenly everything changed. The plane was hit by a missile from Iran. In an instant, the simple mission turned into a dangerous rescue operation that lasted 48 hours. Because the jet lost control, the two pilots were forced to eject using their ejection seats. They landed in the mountainous and dangerous area of Zagros. But before we continue, please like this video. It means a lot to us content creators. Thank you very much. On April 3, the U.S. immediately took action to rescue the two pilots who were inside enemy territory. They sent hundreds of Special Forces troops and began one of the most dangerous ground operations right inside Iran. The operation included elite forces, such as Delta Force and SEAL Team 6, who had to enter from the coast and move into the mountainous area. It was a very difficult route. They also used various vehicles and aircraft such as the C-130 Hercules, 10 Thunderbolt II, helicopters, and MQ-9 Reaper to support the rescue. The first pilot was quickly picked up by the rescue helicopter and brought to safety. But the second one, the Weapons Systems Officer, or WSO, was missing. He was a colonel responsible for the systems and targeting of the aircraft. After he got away from the crash site, his fight for survival began, alone, in the midst of the enemy. Imagine this. You're only holding a pistol and an encrypted communication device. You're inside enemy territory, soldiers are searching for you. And to survive, you even had to climb a mountain that was 2,100 meters high. Because of this, Washington immediately activated the Sandy Search and Rescue Protocol to find and save him. The operation involved various forces and equipment of the United States. There were the Special Forces, HH-60G, Pavehawk, MH-6, Little Bird F-35, Lightning II, and MQ-9 Reaper. But the place itself became a big problem. The Zagros Mountains are full of deep ravines and sharp peaks. Because of this, it's difficult to operate in the area, and it became a perfect hiding place for armed groups. Honestly, when you're inside the valleys, you can barely see beyond 500 meters. Because of this, the first part of the rescue became extremely difficult. While this was happening, the government in Tehran offered a reward of $60,000 to anyone who could capture the American officer alive. Because of this, thousands of people, civilians, tribal groups, and armed men flocked to the mountains to search for him. It was like the whole area turned into a massive manhunt. But what was really happening in the mountains was different from what was being reported in the city. In the air, the U.S. set up heavy protection to prevent anyone from getting close to the missing officer. An A-10 Thunderbolt II was sent to support the rescue and block the Iranian convoys using low altitude and risky maneuvers. It even used its 30mm Avenger cannon to stop the targets. But this was also dangerous. An infrared missile from Chinese-made portable launchers hit the right engine of the A-10. Fortunately, because of its strong armor, the pilot was still able to control the plane and return to base. At the same time, an HH-60W Jolly Green II was hit by heavy anti-aircraft fire from a ZU-23. It sustained heavy damage while in the middle of a rescue mission. Because of the consecutive hits in the air and the rising tension, the operation became even more intense. Even the government's plan in Tehran to mobilize civilians made the situation even more chaotic. Thousands of people went into the mountains, thinking they knew the area well and could find the American officer. But in reality, it was like they were chasing after nothing. The officer was carrying a special device that sent encrypted signals directly to the satellite, not to a regular radio. Because of this, even if they tried to track him using the signal, all the enemy could see was just noise. While the Iranian forces were searching for him using older equipment, the officer managed to walk 8 kilometers in 24 hours and reach a mountain with an elevation of 2,100 meters. When Washington, D.C. learned his exact location, they realized that a rescue by helicopter was no longer possible, so they changed the plan. They would send a team in on the ground. Elite forces from Delta Force and SEAL Team 6 quietly entered, passed through crowds and soldiers, and traveled about 300 miles inside Iran. While they were doing this, air support became more aggressive. The B-1 Lancer and MQ-9 Reaper attacked Iranian forces approaching the officer within 3 kilometers using precise strikes. In the later part of the operation, the U.S. set up a temporary landing area in a province near Isfahan. Here, they used 6 little birds to extract the officer from the mountain where he was hiding and immediately brought him to a safe location. Everything seemed fine at first. The officer was extracted without any gunfire, and it seemed like the plan went smoothly. But the real crisis began when they left the area. 2 C-130 Hercules planes would be used to extract the soldiers and the rescued officer. But there was a problem. The planes got stuck on the temporary runway. The front landing gear sank. It got stuck in thick mud. Because of this, hundreds of special forces almost got trapped inside enemy territory. Within just a few seconds, the commanders made a decision. And this showed how serious the United States military is. To prevent the advanced equipment and technology from falling into Iran's hands, they ordered the destruction of the 2 cargo planes, even though they were extremely expensive. While all the soldiers were evacuated using lighter aircraft, the damaged planes were left behind and burned using explosives. After this, photos of the burning wreckage spread. Iran presented them as if they were the ones who won. But the truth is, they weren't able to stop the small group of commandos from entering and leaving their country. Because of this, it became a huge embarrassment for the government and affected the people's trust in them. As the smoke in the area slowly cleared, it became more obvious that this was not just a simple rescue mission. The 48-hour operation was not a simple one. It was not just a rescue, especially in terms of expenses, logistics, and the way the battle was fought. On one hand, the Pentagon succeeded because they were able to rescue their own people. But if you look deeper, you'll see that even though the U.S. has strong air power, it still faces serious challenges from enemies who use different ways of fighting. The planes that were destroyed just to save others, this wasn't a simple mission. It was extremely costly and dangerous. This also shows that no matter how advanced the technology is, there are still problems in actual situations on the ground. On Iran's side, their air defense is arranged in a wide grid. They divided the entire country into small sections, and in each section, portable missile systems are positioned. Even though it's not as expensive or as advanced as others, it's still effective, especially against low-flying aircraft. When United States jets fly low in the valleys to avoid detection or to attack a target, they enter a danger they can't see. This means that no matter how advanced the equipment and flight of the aircraft are, the danger remains because of the terrain and the simple weapons used by the enemy. Here you can see the big problem, the cost and the continuous losses in this kind of battle. A clear example of this is the F-15 Strike Eagle. A plane that costs almost $140 million can be brought down by a man-portable missile that only costs a few $1,000s. This shows how significant the impact of this kind of warfare is. Even if the chance of hitting the plane in each mission is small, when it's done thousands of times, the costs and losses will only increase. In the end, the question is, can this kind of operation continue if the cost is this high? If you think about it, there are an estimated 20 million buildings and hundreds of thousands of facilities all over Iran. Because of this, it becomes clear that it's extremely difficult to control the entire country using only air power. What happened in just a single operation already cost a lot. The A-10 Thunderbolt II was damaged, 2 C-130 Hercules were blown up, and the F-15 Strike Eagle crashed into the mountains. This shows that even just a single rescue mission already puts a heavy strain on the budget. Because of this, it also makes you wonder how risky it would be to use even more expensive aircraft, like the B-2 Spirit or B-52 Stratofortress inside Iran. This isn't just about the fight, it also affects the relationships between countries. The government has long relied on groups in the Middle East like Hezbollah and the Houthis to strengthen its influence. But because of what happened, these groups are starting to doubt how much Iran can really protect them. If they had a hard time catching even a single soldier inside their own country, it would be even harder if their allies are in another place. You can also see that there was no clear response to United States helicopters and jets entering Iran. There are reports that the detection systems didn't seem to work, and some units were not able to properly defend their own area. Because of this, Iran's allies might lose trust and focus more on its weaknesses. In the end, this is not just a simple military operation. This is an event that could change the way a country's strength is perceived and how it acts in conflict. After the operation, Donald Trump sent a message to Trudeau. In simple terms, he turned it into not just a military update, but also a political message. He also mentioned that many aircraft carrying powerful weapons participated in the operation. This shows that the United States is capable of entering and exiting Iran even when the situation is dangerous. In short, even with the danger, the U.S. is still able to act wherever they want. On the other hand, other powerful countries are surely keeping an eye on this. Countries like Russia and China. While Russia is struggling in other conflicts, what happened inside Iran itself, its ally, could affect how the world views the strength of their blocs, such as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and BRICS. Think about it. A country that even offers money to people to find a soldier and shows off damaged planes as if it's their victory, even though they didn't stop the operation. Because of this, the perception of other conflicts might change. With what the U.S. did, they didn't just rescue their soldier. They also affected the balance of power in the area. Intelligence also played a big role. The CIA, together with its allies, used electronic warfare and deception to disrupt Iran's communications and orders. But even so, there is one clear point. No matter how advanced your equipment is, it doesn't guarantee victory. This can be seen in what happened. They were even forced to destroy their own aircraft so it wouldn't fall into enemy hands. The principle of not leaving anything useful for the enemy was applied. But even so, it didn't make up for the extremely high cost of this kind of battle. As the smoke cleared from the lower parts of the Zagros Mountains, it became clearer that the outcome was not simple. They needed to rethink how to fight. Donald Trump's statements after the operation may have provided some comfort to the people. But behind this, those who study war see a more difficult situation. It's possible that we have entered a new era of conflict where both sides are struggling, and the lines of conflict are becoming more blurred. Right now, victory is no longer just based on the number of weapons. It also includes the costs and the impact on a country's image. After all that, it seems like what happened in the operation is clear. But the truth is, that's just where the more important confusion begins. Because it didn't just show how strong a military is, it also showed how hard it is to control the situation when many things are happening at the same time. And this is where something that is often overlooked comes in, the effect of time. At first, movements are quick, the target is clear, and confidence is high. But as time goes on, things change. Movements become more cautious because the danger increases. In this situation, time itself becomes a factor. As time passes, more information comes in, not just in the military, but also among the public. Because of this, every decision becomes more difficult since you have to consider not just the battle, but also how other countries will perceive it. At the same time, there's an external problem. There are countries that aren't involved but are watching and studying every move. They see where there are weaknesses and how they can recover in the future. Inside the military itself, learning is continuous. Every operation has a lesson, how to move, how to adjust, and how to make decisions in the middle of a problem. But it's not just one side that's learning, the enemy is learning too. Because of this, the fight becomes harder as time goes on. Not everything goes according to plan because there are sudden changes, like wrong information, delays, or problems with the location. In these situations, you must decide immediately, even without all the details. And as time, problems, and changes pile up, it becomes clear that the fight isn't straightforward. Sometimes there's progress, then suddenly things go back to chaos. Sometimes things are under control, then suddenly everything falls apart. This is where the question comes in. Can this be sustained? It's not enough that you can win sometimes. What's important is, can you repeat and maintain this kind of momentum? If every step is too expensive and risky, there will come a point when it's no longer practical. Along with this, problems with movement and supply arise. It's not just about weapons, but also about continuous support like fuel, food, ammunition, and maintenance. If one part fails, the whole mission can be affected. As time goes on, the supply line gets longer and more problems can arise. It's not just the enemy you have to think about, but also your own ability to continue the fight. There's another important thing: fatigue. It's not just machines that are moving, but people too. As time goes on, reactions slow down, focus decreases, and the chance of making mistakes increases. Even a small error can cause a big problem. Some things like the weather and local conditions can't be controlled. The wind, visibility, or terrain can change, and when this happens, the plan needs to be adjusted again. It's also not just one group that's moving. There are those in the air, on land, and at sea, and everyone needs to move at the same time. If one is delayed or makes a mistake, the whole operation can be affected. That's why clear communication is important. But no matter how well the plan is made, there are times when there is interference, jamming, or delays in getting information. Because of this, sometimes you have to make decisions even when details are lacking. As time goes by, the responsibility of leaders becomes heavier because decisions keep coming, and each one comes with its own set of problems. On top of that, the situation can change so quickly that what used to work before may no longer work now. In this way, you can see that the battle is not just about strength, but also about the ability to adjust. Whoever can think and change plans faster has the advantage. Every decision also affects other parts of the operation. Like dominoes, one move immediately has an effect on the others. So even without much time, you still need to think quickly and be ready for possible problems. At the same time, there are problems from people waiting for results, but inside the operation, things move slowly because there are delays, problems, and limitations. When expectations and reality don't match, the situation becomes more difficult. Small events are also important. Not everything happens suddenly. Often, the effects build gradually. As these accumulate, that's when a bigger outcome takes shape. In the end, you'll see that the struggle isn't just one big event, but a series of small, interconnected actions. As time goes by, everything becomes more complicated, and there are more things you need to watch out for. That's why being strong isn't enough. You need to be ready for change, problems, and the unexpected. There's something else that happens as time goes on. The momentum slows down. It's not because you don't want to move, but because you become more careful with every action. When the danger is high, you can't be reckless. When your movements slow down, it gives your opponent a chance to recover. That's why you also need to adjust your strategy, because not everything that worked before will work again. At this point, timing and the right moves matter more than how many moves you make. In the end, as the fight goes on, it becomes clearer that this isn't just a simple battle of strength. This is a battle of perseverance, timing, and the ability to keep going even when the situation keeps changing. And whoever can stay calm, adjust, and wait for the right opportunity has a greater chance of lasting in the fight. And this is where the next discussion becomes clearer. It's not just about how to fight, but also about how this kind of mission affects the decisions that follow. Because after an intense event, its effects don't end right away. In truth, that's where the quieter but deeper changes in the way of thinking and planning begin. First, this is where being more careful with the next move comes in. Once you've experienced how difficult and risky it is, you won't just use the same approach again. Even if the rescue went well, it doesn't mean that's what you'll do again next time. Every step is now thought out more carefully because you know how quickly the situation can change. For example, if before it was possible to immediately send a plane into enemy territory, now they look more closely at whether it's really necessary. Maybe there's a quieter way. Maybe it can be done without being noticed right away. Not because they're weak, but because the danger is more controlled and the results are better. Along with this, changes are being introduced. The way information is viewed will also change. Before, having enough information before starting the mission was enough. But now, it's more important to have continuous updates while everything is happening. This means you don't just gather details once. It needs to be continuous and quickly shared with everyone. This is where the use of satellites, drones, and other modern equipment comes in. They're not just for support anymore. They themselves are the basis for decisions. Whoever has clearer and faster information has more control over what's happening. But there's a trade-off to this. The more we rely on technology, the easier it is for the enemy to disrupt it. If the signal is lost or there's a problem with communication, the whole operation can be thrown into chaos. That's why you can't rely on just one thing. You need a backup, and people must still be able to make decisions even without the help of the system. There's another angle that's often overlooked: the effect on the soldier's mindset. When you know that even if the mission goes well, there's still a chance something could go wrong. The way you look at every order changes. It's not about fear, but about being more careful and more alert. Teamwork becomes even more important. It's not enough to be good on your own. Everyone needs to move together. Each person's role has to be clear, and everyone must be ready to help if something suddenly changes. Along with this, the value of simple strategies also increases. Not everything has to be high-tech. Sometimes what's unexpected is more effective. The ones that are quiet, fast, and hard to notice. Because as technology gets better, the enemy also gets more prepared. And that's where the opportunity comes in to get past them using simple methods. Over time, the effects of this also show up in a country's bigger plans. This isn't just about one mission, but about the overall direction. If it turns out that this kind of move is too expensive and dangerous, the focus can shift from direct attacks to other methods. For example, instead of immediately entering the enemy's territory, you can apply pressure in other ways, such as engaging with other countries or strengthening presence in the surrounding areas. This approach is slower, but it's more consistent and less risky. This also affects how people perceive things. No matter how well something is done, when the public sees the costs and difficulties, they start to ask, is this really necessary? Is it worth it? What will be the consequences in the future? Because of this, it's not just the military making decisions. Politics, public opinion, and other factors are also involved. Every move becomes more complicated because there are many things to consider. In the end, it becomes clearer that today's battles are not just about strength. It's about who knows how to wait, who moves more carefully, and who can adjust better even when the situation isn't perfect. And a simple truth comes out. Not all victories are the same. Some wins are quick but costly. Some wins are quiet but take time. And there are victories that aren't immediately noticed but have a bigger impact in the future. So in this kind of battle, it's not enough to just ask who won a single mission. It's more important to ask who is better prepared for what's next, because that's where true strength is really measured. There's something else that happens as this kind of battle drags on. Decisions slow down, not because they're weak, but because every move is being thought through more carefully. But if you move too slowly, it gives the opponent a chance to act. So you need to find the right balance. Sometimes you have to be quick. Sometimes you need to stop and think. It depends on the situation. In the end, this isn't just a battle of strength or resources. It's about acting at the right time, having a clear mind, and being able to adapt quickly when something unexpected happens. And when you find that balance, your movements become smoother. You don't panic easily and you don't get left behind. You have more control over the situation even when things keep changing. Go.